I'd like to welcome everybody this morning. This is a regular meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. The first action will be, or question actually, are there any additions to the agenda?
There are no additions.
No additions. Council, would you mind reading into the record our closed session item?
Not at all, Chairman. In your closed session agenda for today is conference with your labor negotiators. That's Director Alba Gomez and Human Resources Manager Mrs. Carter. That's under Government Code Section 54957.6, and the employee organization is all units. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And we shall recess in a closed session. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to a regular meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. At this time of the agenda, we will go to the opening and closing of the meeting in memory of. And are there any individuals that one of my colleagues would like to remember at this time? Okay, we will go to the invocation and pledge of allegiance. We have Derek Pearl from First Christian Church who will lead us in the invocation, and that will be followed by the pledge of allegiance led by Nick Salinas. Would everybody stand?
Will you pray with me, please? Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for this meeting, the chance where the Board of Supervisors of Madera County can come together and make decisions that are best for the county. My God, my prayer is that you would go before them and share with them your wisdom for what's best for Madera. And in that, we ask for your hand of continued guidance and protection for our law enforcement and emergency services. And God, we just ask for your hand of blessing to be over the entire city of Madera. And we thank you for listening to our prayers today. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic, nation.
Before we move on to public comment, I'd like to ask our council to report out of closed session any action.
Chairman, there's no reportable closed session action. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And since there is a missing seat on our dais, I'm going to ask our clerk of the board to have a roll call.
Supervisor Frazier.
Here.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Here.
Supervisor Rogers.
Here.
Chairman Poitras.
Yes.
And absent is Supervisor Wheeler.
Okay, thank you. Next is public comment, and as a reminder, the first 15 minutes of each regular session are set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county residence for the record. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment under this definition? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. Are there any consent calendar items that a board member would like to have pulled for further discussion? Are there any members of the public who would like to discuss any items or have a question on one of our consent calendar items? If not, I will accept a motion for action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 6A. This is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing October 4th through 8th, 2021 as Eligibility and Employment and Training Staff Appreciation Week. And we will have a presentation to learn more about what that means. Good morning.
My name is Sharon Diaz. I am the Deputy Director over the Self-Sufficiency Division. I'm going to take this off so I can breathe and talk.
Yes.
Can hear you better too. That's great.
I'm glad. So I am here. Deborah was unable to make it today. Deborah Martinez, our director. And originally the week that was on the public version of the agenda was for October 4th through 8th. We've changed that to the 11th through the 15th. We were unable to make last week's board meeting, so I wanted to make sure that that was publicly acknowledged. October 11th through the 15th has been set aside to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of our eligibility and ETW staff, which is our employment and training worker staff. Throughout this past year, our team has worked diligently to support the needs of Madera County. We have remained open and serving Madera residents throughout the past year, and over the past year, Madera County has seen historic numbers of people in need. Our self-sufficiency team, which consists of 91 eligibility workers and 21 employment and training workers, plus our leadership staff, have done an outstanding job meeting the needs of our community. With record numbers of applications coming in throughout the past year, they have processed 421 GA applications, 2,499 CalWorks applications, 10,348 CalFresh applications, and over 8,000 Medi-Cal applications, and should be acknowledged for the incredible job that they have done. I brought some of our staff with us, and I would like to acknowledge them at this time, if that's okay with everyone.
Please.
Stephanie Salih has been with the Social Services since June of 2018 and is currently an eligibility worker 2. She has been an integral part of the intake unit. She can always be relied upon to complete any assignment given to her. Stephanie also was recently involved with our conversion process to our new computer system, CalSAWS, which was a huge undertaking all in its own. We're still working through some of that. Using her expertise, she was able to provide feedback regarding her experience in this new system. And we want to say how much we appreciate her service at our department. Hilda Ruiz is also a valuable resource to our department. Hilda began working at DSS in January of 2008 as a data entry operator. She began her career as an eligibility worker in April of 2010, and in 2014 she was chosen to work a specialized confidential unit that processes foster care, adoptions, kin gap, and traditional eligibility programs such as CalFresh, CalWorks, and Medi-Cal. Hilda then promoted to eligibility worker 3 in 2015 and continues her service within the specialized unit. We appreciate Hilda for her ongoing commitment to the people of Madera County and assisting our agency with some of our most vulnerable customers, specifically our foster youth.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fabio. I'd like to introduce you to Fabio Garcia. He started working for Madera County in 2005. Fabio was hired as an eligibility worker 1 and promoted to an eligibility worker 2 assigned to the Chowchilla office. He currently works all programs there including CalWorks, CalFresh, and Medi-Cal. He has been a great addition and an asset to the DSS Chowchilla team and our overall team.
Fantastic.
And Alicia. Alicia Fowley joined our team this year in the role of ETW supervisor and brings a wealth of knowledge to the team, including a vast experience in childcare programs, which is critical for the families we serve in CalWorks to secure childcare in order to become full-time employed. Alicia has not been with us long, but she has quickly become a very valued member and asset to our leadership team.
Excellent.
Marissa? Okay, Marissa Rodriguez has been with DSS for 5 years. She began her career with us as an eligibility worker, and through hard work and dedication, promoted to welfare to work as an employment and training worker in 2019. Her current assignment includes our linkages program, family stabilization, and HSP, which is a housing program. Marissa works closely with child welfare social workers to develop coordinated and family stabilization plans to help participants become successful in regaining or maintaining custody of their children. In housing, Marissa helps families achieve stability and safety by ending homelessness. Marissa identifies and assists families in removing barriers that may prevent them from securing housing and becoming self-sufficient. As part of HSP, Marissa conducts landlord recruitment and engagement, rent and moving assistance, housing-related focused case management, and additional services based on household needs. Marissa can be counted on to assist all of her families and their peers. Lastly, I have one of my program managers with me, Janelle Cook. I didn't write an extensive bio because I know what a value Janelle is. So she does oversee multiple of our self-sufficiency programs, has done a lot of specialized programs, including our Medi-Cal navigation program, which does outreach to ensure people can apply for and receive Medi-Cal benefits. So Janelle, continues to be one of our leaders for our self-sufficiency team. She is truly an asset and has been so helpful to me as I transitioned into this position myself. So I want to personally and publicly thank Janelle for her hard work.
Thank you.
So lastly, I just would like to publicly thank all of our eligibility, employment, and training workers and our support staff for providing stellar service to our community throughout the last year.
Fantastic. Well, that's great, and congratulations, everybody. And it's our pleasure to celebrate this week. And I really am happy that you introduced some folks and described, some of the things they do, because I think it kind of gets lost amongst the public as far as some of the specific functions that DSS performs, a lot of our citizens and taxpayers. And it's so important. I mean, every time I heard a description about something was going on, I heard about finding apartments or, helping out tenants. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's like next to impossible these days, to find spaces. And so every function again is got to take its toll, because there is that human element, the emotion, and so forth. So we just appreciate so much about what you do.
Yeah,
So
I agree. And I was same thing, like hearing that. And I know, just even in my business, how many people I'm losing right now because they can't either afford childcare or can't find it. And, and they have to make a choice whether they work and can provide for the family or provide for the family by just being home, and then get into, so it's, what you're doing is it's huge impact to everybody in the community, not just the people that you're serving, but the workforce as a whole, the businesses, the people, everything. It does so much. So thank you.
Yeah, can I?
Please.
Yeah, I just want to add that I was over at Department of Social Services as an eligibility worker back in 2003. Sharon was over there back then, and it is a lot of work. The caseload was massive, so I can't imagine what it is, and just the clientele that you work with. Oftentimes it's an emergency need, and you have to turn that over and within a certain amount of time. So thank you for all the work that you do. It's tremendous. I really appreciate it.
I want to kind of add to that really quickly, because you mentioned that about a caseload size, and we were talking about this the other day. Caseloads on the average when I was an eligibility worker when I started were about 200,
Yeah,
250.
that's what I had.
What is the current average?
Oh,
So, and that's our expectation for one program for one worker. So yes, they are very busy. And obviously serve clients with great courtesy and respect at all.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And in honor of that, we'd like to have all my colleagues and have everybody join us here in the front. We're going to take a photo and I'll present the proclamation. And I'm happy to tell you that the proclamation has the correct dates, October 11th through the 15th.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to delay item 6B and jump to 6C. This is the presentation of the 2021 semi-annual Madera County Cultural of Excellence Award. This is an award given to individuals or departments who have been nominated by their department head or division head for exceptional service to the taxpayers and their clients here in Madera County. We are very proud to celebrate this and have this opportunity and to recognize those excellent efforts. It's I think that our Madera County organization is very good in terms of customer service, and so we do have an excellent, I believe, threshold of service. And so a lot of times people do what other counties would call exceptional service, but it's just what people expect that they would do here in this county. You know, it's nothing exceptional to them, but it would be in other places. So we like to set the standard high, and people put pressure on themselves to set that standard high. But, you know, once in a while there, again, are those that we need to recognize those who have gone above and beyond the call of duty. So we have 4 different awards that we would like to present today. And since I see Jared Carter, he's kind of like first in line. I believe, Jared, you have an individual that you have recommended and nominated for a 2021 Award of Excellence.
Yeah, good morning, Chairman, Supervisors. I have 2 folks, if I can bring them up at the same time.
Please.
Don't be shy. So many of you are familiar with our Oakhurst Midtown project, which is one of the largest projects that we've taken on as this county for transportation purposes. It has seen quite a few challenges along the way, and certainly one of those most significant challenges was the pandemic that hit in 2020. The 2 individuals I have here today, Nancy Drunick and Hayden Hinkle, have been an integral part in keeping that project going and working through the pandemic and some of the very challenging situations that we faced to keep that project on track and get it into construction, which it's now nearing completion. Some of the things that specifically that they did during this time, Nancy she's our real property agent, and dealing with all the property owners and the acquisitions of right-of-way and easements and things that we needed for the project was in and of itself a challenge, let alone with the pandemic, not being able to, meet with people in person regularly or having to make contact with people. But she did an outstanding job of making sure that she was on top of everything despite not having access to a lot of the resources that she normally would during the pandemic. And making time to go actually meet with people. She went as far as Southern California to meet with some of the property owners, took time during the evenings to meet with them after trainings and things that she was doing. So a tremendous effort on that part. Hayden also was working as a project manager and kind of inherited the project towards in the last couple of years. So picking that up and taking it on and continuing to push everything forward, working again with consultants and state and federal agencies throughout the pandemic in those challenging times. And on top of that, he also welcomed his second child into the world during that time in June. So these two individuals have put a tremendous amount of effort and gone above and beyond the normal call of duty to ensure that this project gets done, which I know is a significant project for the community and going to provide a tremendous amount of congestion relief as well as safety for the community in Oakers. So just wanted to recognize them for their efforts and thank them for all that they've done for us.
Very good. Thank you. I think a round of applause is in order. Congratulations. And what we'd like to do is we do have, today we will have 3 presentations, and typically we don't do this, but since it's only 3, I'd like to do is present these plaques to you here in the front and then have all my colleagues join me for pictures.
Yeah,
So,
on behalf of, we got to say something on behalf of Tom, who's not here. So in Tom speak, I would say, I can't thank you enough. It sounds like something Tom would say. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for us and getting the job done. Thank you. Yeah.
Where do you live? That's the other one.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to steal anybody's thunder, and I know Dexter's behind me, but I did. Jared did forget just one little tidbit about Hayden as well that I wanted to share, and to put a little added pressure on him as well, because he is just about finished up rounding third, heading home on being a licensed civil engineer and getting his PE. So
Excellent.
fantastic.
he's just trying to get that wrapped up for him too. So which will be a huge benefit to the county as a whole and certainly the Public Works Department. So
Now, isn't Hayden from Madera?
I've heard that rumor, but I've also heard he's an Oakland Athletics fan. So that's one strike
gotcha.
against him. But.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, if he was a Dodgers fan, he wouldn't make it from third to home. How many runs did they score last night? Okay.
All right. You know, this is what I like. You know, first in line was Jared. He says, I'm going to be first. And then Dexter, man, he didn't waste any time. You know, we could have had the sheriff over here, but Dexter gave him an elbow and pushed him out and said, no, we're going next. So here's Dexter. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Dexter Marr, Deputy Director, Environmental Health. I just want to personally thank you guys for that honor for the award. I have a staff of 15 inspectors. Like Jared said, you know, we worked through the COVID times and pandemic and still ongoing. And I know that with a lot of our staff with families and everything else, I know it was pretty difficult. Our division, we oversee 9 programs within the state, and we inspect over 1,600 facilities in the county. And I just want to thank my staff for the dedication and hard work in trying to keep Madera County safe, especially with our food industry, our hazardous material industry, and our water program. Those are our 3 main programs that we deal with. That's pretty much all I have to say. All right, like I said, my staff, they are working hard. I have a few that are off today, and I want to thank them as well. I also just want to thank the support of the board, continued support, and especially with Matt Trieber, our Chief of Development Services. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dexter. And we appreciate everything you do and what your department does to keep us safe out there. And sometimes your message is not received in a real positive manner by certain people, but it's an important one nonetheless. And and we sure appreciate that and want to recognize you for your for the Award of Excellence. So we'd like to have your department join us up here in the front.
Also, as someone who gets regularly inspected by your staff, they work with the business owners too. It's not just coming in to regulate. They want to help get in, make sure that the compliance. There was a piece that I had that was broken on a sink that, everything takes longer to get in, but they worked and just to get that in compliance and continue to stay on top of it. It's always been a great experience, even before I was sitting on the dais working with environmental health. And they care about the public safety, but they also care about the businesses that they're going into too. So very professional, and just thank them for all that they do.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Frazier, for that. Yes, and like our department, and we worked with Matt, and our main goal is compliance. That's all we care about. We would like to make sure that everybody's in compliance, and we work with all property owners, business owners as well. Thanks.
And our next Award of Excellence will be introduced by our Sheriff, Tyson Pogue.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Board. Earlier this year, our Madera County Narcotic Enforcement Team concluded an investigation of the likes which we have not seen since the early 2000s. The investigation yielded 40 arrests, 14 firearms, and the seizure of nearly $500,000 worth of illegal drugs. They served more than a dozen search warrants, high-risk search warrants on several gang members, and made a notable difference in the small community of Lavina. MADNET is comprised of task force agents from the Madera County Sheriff's Office, Madera County Probation, Madera County District Attorney's Office, the Madera Police Department, and Chowchilla Police Department. Due to the magnitude of this investigation, they're provided assistance by several of our best Sheriff's Office investigators. And while working this case, the team sacrificed hundreds of hours of their own time, giving up time with their families, all in the spirit of protecting the community by targeting a major drug trafficking organization. This is just one of many examples of how this team exemplifies excellence every day. I'm proud of our team and appreciate the chairman and the board for recognizing their hard work and this amazing accomplishment.
Very good. Thank you, Sheriff. And it certainly was, and it was a big deal, and it took a lot of cooperation with many allied agencies, and we just appreciate it so much. I had an opportunity to attend the press conference, and it was indeed impressive in terms of the operation, and of course that was just a few minutes as far as the presentation, but the hours that and sacrifice that went into apprehending these individuals and then going on for the prosecution is so important. So I'm honored today to present the MadNet team with the 2021 Award of Excellence, and we'd like to have everybody involved in that effort.
Sorry, this isn't working today. Been doing it for, but I was able to just go to a community meeting out in Lavinia, and a lot of times they feel like they were forgotten. And when we brought it up, you could tell there was such a sense of pride that we knew what was going on in the sheriff's office, and went in and removed people from their neighborhood that they were scared of, and they were very thankful and really appreciated what was done on their behalf. And so from the community of Lavinia, I'd like to thank everybody personally, and seeing in their eyes what it meant to them. Just want to say thank you for everything that you did for them.
They truly made a difference in that small community.
They really did.
I'd say ditto to that, and I appreciate law enforcement completely. And from my family, thank you for what you do.
Sally and Chris, did you guys want to come up here also, since you're on the council?
Coalition is forming, and a good one for that.
We'll move on in the agenda to item 6B, and this is a proclamation recognizing October 11th through the 15th as Indigenous Peoples Week. And we have Bobby McCauley, the Chief of Staff for District 5, who will be making the presentation and introductions.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board. Supervisor Wheeler regrets that he's not going to be able to be here this morning. This is a really important item to him. But he did want to extend my thanks to all of you for seeing this item this morning. We do have Ron Good with the Mono Nation as well as Joetta. We also have the North Fork Rancheria of the Mono Indians online, along with the Picayune Rancheria. So thankful for all of them to join us this morning. And I do believe that Ron has a couple words that he wanted to share with us. Ron, if you'd like to come up. Couple.
Manahu. Manahu. Ibosos. Anituau. And Chau. Hello, my friends, and hope you're all doing well. We appreciate the honor that you are bestowing upon our people of this county, the indigenous people. And I thought about a few things along the way, but you know, we've been indigenous people before, so it's nice to kind of be indigenous people again and be recognized as such. 1492 is, we know, you guys probably took the day off yesterday. Oh, you didn't? Oh, how about that? Well, that's an improvement. Still on the calendar. But in 1492, we became Indians, And in 1776, we became Native Americans. 1924, we became American Indians. And so it's kind of nice here in 2021 that we're back being indigenous people again. And of course, we always have been. But I quote those different dates for you because throughout the last 500 plus years, recognition and acknowledgement is always changing. And for all of our people here, I've came here in 1989 and got a proclamation from the board recognizing the North Fork Mono tribe in the 10,000 years that we've been here. So that was a great deal for us to be, state recognized, county recognized as the Indian people here. When we look back at, why we're Indians, it's kind of interesting because long before Columbus found his way here, the Maoris came to Easter Island. The Hawaiians went to Northern California and stayed. We got some tribes up there with Hawaiian blood. We have a ship off the coast of LA from the Chinese, dated 1149. And of course, we know that the Norwegians came over and stayed for 2 centuries in Maine, New York, New Hampshire, Virginia. I'm sure that they interacted with the Indian people there. Maybe that's why we all got a little red hair here and there, In the meantime, around 1400, one of the Eskimos got in his little boat and he went over to see the Norwegians, So, been a lot of travel back and forth, but here we are, we're still Indians, right? And as my daughter will say, she goes, we're the Indians with feathers. Yeah, the real Indians are dot Indians. I said, okay, I'm glad to hear this differences of who we are. So I just want to say thank you for, not only just giving us one day, but recognizing, for the whole week. If I can, I would love to sing you a song. Is that all right?
Sure.
Certainly.
So this is what we call a renewal song. And this is a good time for renewal, right? We are puna, quickly no ka. We are puna, quickly no kagi. We are puna, quickly no ka. We are puna, quickly no kagi. We are puna, quickly no ka. Atamana kwea, kui kui no kagi. Atamana kwea, kui kui no kagi. We are Puna, kui no kagi. Do we Puna, kui no kagi. Do we Puna, kui no kagi. Atamana kwea, kui no kagi. Atamana kwea, kui no kagi. Atamana kwea, kui no kagi. Woo, 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 woo. All four directions.
You have a nice bass voice.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I'd also like to recognize Joetta Fleet. Joetta is very active. She's a native Madeiran and attended local schools, and now she's been very involved in the community. She's on our courthouse park renewal committee as well as working diligently with the Arts Authority and is also a trustee with Madera Unified School District. So we thank Joetta for all her great efforts. So if there's no other comments, what we'd like to do is we do have a proclamation. So Ron, don't go away. We'd like to have everybody come up here in the front, and we'd like to present a proclamation recognizing Indigenous Peoples Week. Okay, we'll move on to, we have our public hearings, and our first report will be our GSA update. And Stephanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephanie Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources, for a brief update on GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency activities for the Madera County GSA. I am also joined online on WebEx by Mike Linden. So just 2 slides for you, and I will review kind of what we have been working on over the past couple of months. As you know, your board adopted resolutions regarding allocations last December, in June, and in August. So we're working hard to get those allocations up and running and on EraWatch so that people can track their allocations according to their live evapotranspiration of applied water. So anyone who is considered eligible, meaning they're paying our GSA admin fee, automatically will receive sustainable yield and transition water. We are updating the acreages, what is in EraWatch, and what we used this year was from a DWR crop layer. So we are using the full APN as long as 80% of it is irrigated, and those are going to update in the next couple of weeks. We are developing a process for opting in for people accessing sustainable yield on the never irrigated land. And we are going to do public notice as well as letters to people who have never irrigated parcels to let them know about the process for that. As you know, we've been updating you on terms of the rate study. With refining costs, we are coming up against the end of the year, so you will see a range of costs presented at the first board meeting in November. And if those meet with your approval, hopefully a final report first board meeting in December. This has taken longer than we had hoped, but if you have questions about that, we've essentially had to take 4 different scientific studies and put them into the rate study. And so whether it's recharge or land repurposing or domestic wells or potentially sites reservoir, we've had lots of coordination among multiple consulting teams to get those numbers. We also just signed the Prop 68 grant agreements. That's the $4.2 million in the Madera subbasin and $4.2 million in the Chowchilla subbasin for recharge projects. So we signed that in August. We had our launch meeting with DWR in September, and then we're doing local launch meetings this month. And then October is also our chance to do well reads that happens twice a year at the representative monitoring sites, RMS. So those are occurring starting next week. We'll take well reads for wells in our network for both well levels as well as water quality. And then a bunch of outreach activities. We've completed a guide for EraWatch, and that is on the Madera County Water website on the measurement page. That's a PDF that will help people navigate it. We also did 6 trainings this year too, so lots of opportunities to learn how to use it. I've attended meetings both at Red Top and with Clayton Water District to walk them through allocations and EraWatch separately. We are working on developing a small farmer group with MAWA and with the Farm Bureau, and have done a fair amount of analysis in the background using the assessors' data layers to identify small farmers as well as ag commissioners' data for pesticide permits. We anticipate small farmers, meaning under a certain amount of acres, typically will have a learning curve in terms of SGMA because they may not have attended the meetings along the way. And so we have met individually with a few small farmers, and I think maybe having them have a group so that they can coordinate will be helpful to them. And then we are planning a rate workshop at the end of November. That's a public workshop where we will go over all of the costs in anticipation of bringing a rate study to you at the beginning of December. So that's it with updates. I wanted to point out one thing in this table. Let me see if so I have the cursor on one number. It is the number 7 under reallocated sustainable yield. For whatever reason, the 6 and the 7 are rounding to the nearest whole number here. So where the 7 presents itself is really the number 6.7. And the totals are all fine. The green totals are what we are using in terms of tracking allocations, but there is a rounding. It's not really an error, it's just rounded. So I'm just pointing that out publicly in case you have any questions about it. So that is the end of my update. I would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Yes, Supervisor.
On the opting in on the never irrigated, so they would have a sustainable yield for the entirety of the acreage
For the parcel.
for the parcel, and if they broke that in, like, so if say you had 100 acres, your sustainable yield could only maybe do 20 acres of that 100 acres. You'd have the sustainable yield for the entire parcel, right? To work that 20 acres if that was what you could grow.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. You would be able to access sustainable yield on the parcel as an entirety.
Okay.
Very good. If there's no other questions from my colleagues, I have a couple of questions. And now the GSA administration fee, that's been kicked out already? I mean, that's already been billed, the administration fee?
Yes, so that's approximately $24 per irrigated acre within the county GSA. It should be on your property taxes. I know I received mine, so I'm assuming others received theirs as well.
Okay, so it's on property taxes,
Yes.
not on, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Second of all, you mentioned the small farmer group. Is there a acreage number that would, call, say somebody's classified as a small farmer if they have under 20 acres, 40 acres?
So excellent question, and Christina and I have talked through that. There is no universally accepted definition of what a small farmer is.
Okay.
So you can use acreage, you can use gross revenue, or you could use net profit. There are lots of different criteria. The woman who is an expert in small farmers who works in Fresno County typically also uses row crops and whether people sell direct to a consumer as a criteria. So we have less small farmers in that definition than Fresno County, a lot less. But there still are people with acreages that kind of come in under 100 who probably are consumed with daily life of farming and not as plugged into Sigma.
They, and then they are being, so people in that, I mean, it's just going to kind of be like a general message out saying, if you're a small farmer, please attend this. So it's not really a direct communication to somebody who has X number of acres or something. It's more about just a general announcement.
It seems like it would be useful for us to do additional outreach to that group, but we have not directly reached out. In fact, we developed some materials that were intended for small farmers, but we ended up sending them to everybody.
Okay, very good. And I would agree, for whatever reason, Fresno County, especially in the fringes and more the southwest or eastern area of Fresno, seems to have a high number of small, I call them truck farmers, I guess, something like that, where they sell their vegetables and things of that sort. So, gotcha. And then last of all, and on the second slide, we're starting off on year 2020 for next year. Are we jumping right into 2022?
Yes, you'll be at the year that's next year's 2022, so we are using the numbers for 2022.
Okay, 28 total, or the evapotranspiration equivalent for 28 inches. So.
28 inches ETAW in 2022 in the Madera Subbasin for the Madera County GSA.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that have any questions for Stephanie? Looks like there's somebody.
Good morning. This is Madeline Harris from Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. I had a quick question. I heard in the presentation Stephanie mention that there would be updates to the monitoring well data anticipated for the end of October, if I heard correctly. And so I just wanted to ask that that information be released side by side with the modeling data that's in the GSP so that we can see how the current data on groundwater levels, juxtaposes with what's in the GSP to see how far we are on track versus not. Thanks.
So the data from the wells is available publicly, and there may be some DWR modeling tools. There's a data sharing workshop from DWR later this week, Madeline, which would help. And the annual report does what you're asking. So we would need to wait until that report is done. Otherwise, we would be incurring additional effort.
I'd like to caution people too on that because this is not a one-year process, and as you examine data, you're going to have to go out over a period of time because we have events that are accounted for in the overall modeling that occur only once every 5, 6, 7 years. So those events are going to be accounted for as they occur and not in that necessarily in that first year. It may happen in that first year. So when you see the data, you may think, oh, we're not on track, but you've got to look at it as in the big picture, not just in the short run.
Just like if this was an El Nino year, it would look like we were way ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Be a false premise.
Okay, are there any other public comments? I think, first of all, out in Webland, I don't hear anybody. So it looks like, Stephanie, there's somebody behind you that has a public comment.
I will move out of the way.
Yeah, you can share. Yeah, there you go.
Just nothing inappropriate, I don't think. Christina Beckstead, Executive Director at Madera County Farm Bureau. Just a couple of questions, but before I get into that, one statement I would like to point out is that small farms vary from county to county. And Madera is very unique in the findings that Stephanie and I have had, in that our small farms look very different generally than other counties, including Fresno and Merced and whatnot. Kind of like dairies, right? Dairies, as you move further north, look significantly different than once you hit that kind of Madera Chowchilla line. So just a comment I wanted to point out. Questions that I have on the sustainable yield for the entire, so this goes to Supervisor Frazier's questions, that it would go over the entire parcel. That's only if 80% or more of it is irrigated. Is that correct?
You are too close to us. What we were talking about was the never irrigated acreage, right, Supervisor Frazier? So you can access sustainable yield on the entire parcel, even if you are irrigating a portion of it. That is how I understand water law, and Mike Linden is on WebEx to jump in if that's not clear. And he might need to be unmuted.
Good morning, members of the boards. And yes, and on this issue, I believe we have discussed it previously, and what's going to depend on is a number of things, not just purely whether somebody has a right to it, but the amount of acreage planted there. I mean, it's not just something that can be allocated without any sort of need for the water. So it's going to depend on the need as well. But yes, it is a parcel-based observation.
Clear?
Very clear.
Sure. So Ms. Beckstead asked about the allocation, and what if you are currently irrigated, you get sustainable yield for the parcel, and you will also get the full parcel of transitional water if you are 80% irrigated. That was in your August resolution. So the idea there was you can't be 10%, you can't have 10% of the land on the parcel irrigated and have full transitional water, which could actually increase the amount that you plant. So full sustainable yield for the parcel, transitional water, you're 80% or above, you get the full parcel's worth amount. I know clear as mud. I'll make a slide on
so
it.
So that's for the transitional water, but
Yep.
on a never irrigated,
There's
break
no
in that-
transitional water for never irrigated, just sustainable
So they could
yield.
break in 10% and get the full parcel of sustainable yield.
If you are never irrigated and you only plant 10%, I believe you would be eligible for the full parcel's worth, according to water law as I understand it today.
Because it'll change tomorrow.
It's all a snapshot of where we are, right? Thank you, fluid.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've heard Mike make a comment about the need. And so if there was no crop there and someone got caught pumping not only their sustainable yield and their transition water, they're putting it in trucks and moving it somewhere else, they're in trouble.
Yes, your board will need to adopt a penalty ordinance for that sort of thing, but Mike and I have one drafted.
And there's already an ordinance that taking it over county lines is.
You can't move groundwater outside
Right.
the county, yes.
Yeah, but you've thought of the eventuality of somebody not having a crop there and taking that water and doing something else with it. So,
yes.
interesting.
Moonshiners. Okay.
Bootlegging water.
On marijuana.
Okay, and then another point of clarification on the rate study. So I'm assuming, based on what you stated today, there's going to be a rate study presentation at the November Board of Supervisors meeting, followed by the public workshop November 30th, followed by approval of that rate study at the December Board of Supervisors meeting. Is that correct?
So your board needs to, when the rate study is complete, your board has to tell us to give people notice, and then there's a 45-day period. So if we did it at the beginning of December, it would come back for a public hearing second week in January.
Okay.
Okay, and then lastly, on the rounding, thank you for providing that clarification, Stephanie. I'm looking at her sheet here on this screen, but it's not up on the large screen. One comment I will make to that effect is that the numbers are very specific, right? So you have for 2020, 28.7, 2021, 28.3. We all, I think, recognize that accuracy of various programs, equipment, that kind of thing is probably not as accurate as what's on here. And I think rounding moving forward as we talk about sustainable yield and measuring and incurring fees associated with whatever your pumping is maybe needs to be looked at from a rounded number, because growers can look at this and say, okay, 28 inches is what I've got. 28.256 probably not going to be that accurate. So from an efficiency standpoint, not everybody operates at a high level of efficiency. And as we move forward, I think people are going to move forward into making sure that their meters are checked on a regular basis and to improve any efficiencies that they possibly can, but that's going to take time. So these very specific numbers are going to probably be difficult for a hard pill for farmers to swallow when accuracy, even at the plan level, is not that accurate, if that makes sense. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who have a comment regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Our next public hearing is item 8A. This is the second hearing to provide a comparative analysis regarding the redistricting census data from 2010 to the current 2020 census data, and an opportunity for public to comment and participate.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Bax with Community and Economic Development Department in the Planning Division. I'd like to reintroduce a couple of our redistricting team members. We have Sam Roche from Planning, one of our planners. We also have Trevor Stearns from QK Inc., who has been assisting us, and also Ethan Davis from QK Inc. is here with us as well. So again, this is the second hearing as required by the Elections Code of 4 hearings prior to adopting the final maps. The next hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday, which will actually meet another Elections Code requirement of holding the hearing either in the evening after 6 p.m. or on a weekend. So that criteria will be fulfilled. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to go over some brief points in regards to this part of the process. But what we're doing basically at this hearing is going over the last census data, which was from 2010.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Trevor Stearns with QK. I'm going to be discussing just looking over the redistricting effect and also a comparative analysis between the 2010 and 2020 census efforts. So there are many requirements mandated by the California Elections Code that requires high-level attention to detail through this highly publicized process. Strict compliance with the Elections Code and Voting Rights Act of 1965, along with a comparative analysis to the previous decennial supervisory redistricting effort, is the most logical path forward through in order to minimize the risk of litigation. Federal and state laws outline several criteria ranging from the prohibition of racial gerrymandering to maintaining geographical compactness of communities. According to the Supreme Court case Avery versus Midland County, one of the key factors that is identified proving the legitimacy of a redistricting plan is striving to be compliant with the equal population rule, or one person, one vote rule. In addition, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 must be adhered to as well. This law addresses the history of discrimination faced by communities of color by protecting them during all stages of the electoral process. This includes drawing of new district boundaries or the revision of existing district boundaries. According to the United States Census, Madera County has seen a percent change of 20% from 2000 to 2010, just to give you guys an idea of how that's shaped up within the last 20 years or so. In 2010, the total population for Madera County was 156,865. That included the state prison as well. The table that you see before you provides an analysis of the total population for each district with the inclusion of the state prison. At the time, the Board of Supervisors actually determined to remove the incarcerated population from the total population, which was allowable under the provisions, under the previous state law. With the exclusion of the prison population, District 2, which was the most populated district, is now the least populated district using the 2010 supervisory district boundaries and the 2010 census data. The aforementioned exclusion, the deviation from the largest and smallest district is 1,990 people, or 7.1%. In 2011, the Madera County Board of Supervisors agreed that an approximate 7% deviation from the largest and smallest district was an acceptable deviation and subsequently approved the new district boundaries. Now, for the determination of a 7% deviation, there is, as mentioned previously, that one person, one vote rule or substantially equal population. You want whatever jurisdictional boundaries that are being revised every census, you want to strive for that equal population. What we have shown here for the 2010 population is that ideal population, which if it's split by, if the total population for the county was split evenly 5 ways, that's the number that you would come to. So that would be a 0% deviation. And we'll touch on this a little later. There are thresholds that are not mandated, but they are recommended that you were to be below them. That's around a 10% deviation. And I know that was a question during the last hearing. So we'll get more into that, but that's kind of the deviation threshold that we were working with. And that's what has been approved in the past, is below that 10% deviation. So, as you all may remember also, there was a midterm redistricting effort in 2016 and 2017. That shifted the boundaries along the eastern edge of where District 1 and District 5 are contiguous. That boundary shift has been taken into account considering the future supervisory boundary revisions as a part of the 2020 redistricting plan. However, the data that was used in order to determine the new boundaries between District 1 and District 5 used the American Community Survey database. So what that means is the redistricting plans every 10 years are required to use the decennial census that's applied every 10 years. So the data determined made during the 2010 decennial redistricting process provides a clear indication of the actual percent deviation that was acceptable at the time, and therefore that can be used as a precedent to move forward with any subsequent redistricting efforts. So since we're in a position here in 2020 due to the pandemic and things like that, the data hasn't been accessible for the majority of the year. And the intention for this whole process is for the redistricting effort to be drawn out within that year, starting in early spring and ending up to be completed by the end of the month. However, we started in the fall and we still have the same end date. So with this compressed timeline, the as of September 20th, September 20th of 2020, or 2021, sorry, the statewide database released the redistricting data that included the incarcerated population that had last known addresses in Madera County. As we found out reviewing the elections code, the Madera County cannot choose whether or not to include that incarcerated population in the total population. You're required to allocate the peoples that are incarcerated that have a last known address in Madera County, and they must be allocated within that district. So you will see that, the Valley State Prison, which I believe is in District 2, there will be a reduction in the overall total population because of that allocation. It's more spread out between all the districts rather than centralized in District 2. So as I mentioned, the statewide database released that data September 20th.
How many people does that?
In the prison?
Yes.
The prison had approximately 5,500 people in it.
Well, I'm talking about how many with addresses in our county, in that district. Don't they have to be in that district?
So
addresses?
The specific data that we got from the statewide database, which one of their purposes is to provide that analysis of the addresses, the last known addresses of the incarcerated people. They're supposed to be assigned to that corresponding block. So if, for instance, if you have the 5,000 incarcerated people in District 2, but all the people incarcerated are from, just throwing out an example, District 1, that population will then be shifted from District 2 to District 1 because those addresses were the last known addresses and they were located in District 1.
I don't think that there's going to be very many.
Right.
I don't believe that there's going to be very many who are actually allocated to District 2 from that population.
That's correct. Yeah. So
if I could also speak, and sorry for stepping in there, Trevor, on that point, you'll see a large variation, and I think we can certainly, if we don't have those exact numbers, I know off the top of my head, out of the 5,500 or so approximate individuals within that prison, right, a fraction of those actually had last known addresses of Madera County. So you will see those allocations throughout the state or the country from their last known address, and I think that number was about 1,000 out of that 5,500. that actually had last known addresses within Madera County, and that would go
surprises
towards
me even.
yeah, that would go towards the those districts where they address and the location of those addresses of their last known residents.
Thank you.
Right, yeah.
I have other questions, but I have one like specifically on this slide. Be okay to ask?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, and then what we'll do is we'll wait until the end to ask any other questions, so we can get Trevor kind of in that rhythm, and he can get done, and then we can come back and ask a whole bunch of questions.
Absolutely. So just what if I'm understanding this correctly, it says the deviation between the highest and lowest district is 7,763, which is 17.5%. But I mean, just quick math, it was 4,782 that was between, if you took 3,000 or 31,987, am I minus 27,224?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have the information specifically in front of me on how we did that calculation, but I'm certain that the highest and lowest deviation is that 17.5%, because that is a
Yeah, and Supervisor, that's a good point. Yeah, certainly the math is wrong there. District 5 has our lowest population of the 27,224, and District 3 is our highest based on the current existing boundaries.
Yeah, and the difference between that is 4,700.
Yes, not the 7,763. So we'll certainly correct that moving on to our next hearing next week.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, District 1.
And I mean, even looking at the 9.9% negative and the 5.8% positive would be more like, 15.7% deviation, not 17.5.
Right, yeah. So that is just a typographical. I do apologize for that. So in the staff report, it does say 4,763, which is 17.5%.
Also, my name is spelled Rogers.
Definitely do apologize.
It's okay.
There's numbers on the pages, though. That's okay.
All right, we're going to save up our questions now.
I just wanted to.
There you go.
See that. So sorry.
So this table that we see in front of us is the 2020 total population and ideal population, also the percentage deviation of that. So this population however, this population of the Valley State Prison is excluded from the total population because, as we've discussed, the California Elections Code does require that you exclude the population that is not, does not have that last known address within Madera County or within the districts of Madera County. With the exclusion of the prison population, District 2, which was the most populated district, is now the 4th most populated district. Using the current supervisorial district boundaries and 2020 census data, the largest district is District 3, and the smallest district is District 5. With the aforementioned exclusion, the deviation from the largest and smallest district is approximately 4,700 people, or specifically 4,763 people, or approximately 17.5% deviation. So Table 3 is an overview of the demographic categories provided by the United States Census Bureau for Madera County, just to give you an idea of how that split looks like between, or for the entirety of Madera County. So specifically that code section for the discussion of the incarcerated population is Elections Code Section 21003. And that specifies the population equality shall be based on the total population of the residents of the county as determined by the most recent census and include the population of incarcerated people. Last known address was assigned to a census block or block in that particular county. So that's what we're dealing with right now. Give you an idea. So in order for a redistricting plan to be consistent with the past court decisions, the deviation from the largest and smallest district in terms of population must be less than 10%. Now, that's not a mandate, but that is something that court cases have proven in the past when this issue has been brought up. With the current supervisory district boundaries in 2020 census data, the largest district by population, District 3, and the smallest, District 5, the deviation between those is 17.5%. So if we were to elect something that doesn't change any of the boundaries, we would then be exceeding that 10% deviation. Other criteria for redistricting plans that could be considered. These are commonly held standards that are a part of state law, and some are not. That can be used as criteria for guiding potential boundary adjustments. Those are the preservation of communities of interest, compactness, be contiguous, respect existing legislative boundaries, respect incumbency, packing avoidance, and cracking avoidance. Those are outlined in more detail in the staff report as well, and we can go over those after the presentation. Furthermore, staff's recommendation is to use the 2010 supervisory district boundaries as a starting point for the actual 2020 redistricting plan. By using the precedent set in 2010, the redistricting process, which was deemed acceptable to the previous Board of Supervisors, the most recent supervisory redistricting plan can use a similar methodology based on that previous precedent. This will allow the Board of Supervisors to use the previously approved redistricting methodology for the 2020 redistricting plan. Adjustments will be made to rectify new census blocks that are bifurcated by the existing district boundaries and adjusting boundaries to reach the substantially equal population figure. District 5 has been consistently on the lower end of the total population count for many years. District 5 will need to be revised in order to address its low population. Staff will provide at least 3 maps that will address this deviation. And that next meeting, at October 19th meeting, that's when we're going to be planning to present those 3 draft maps. So, if you guys have any questions, we'll be happy to go over any of those questions with you.
Any questions?
I have one. Yes. Just looking at the population growth in District 1, it doesn't seem to pass the eye test. On the census data, what was added in the new development area?
Excellent question, Supervisor Frazier. And we have looked at that because I too, when these numbers first came out, thought, that looks a little interesting there. And there has been certainly a lack of recognition in the 2020 census data of the growth that we've seen primarily on the 41 corridor. That's really the area that out of all of the districts that we've seen kind of the census in 2020 not capturing a lot of that, in my opinion. You have, for example, in Tesoro Viejo, that specific plan community, the census blocks that are out there shows a population of 12 to 16 individuals residing within the entirety of Tesoro Viejo.
They all have 5 homes?
Yes. Well, I think it's up to about 20 now. They all have about 20 homes.
Yeah, okay.
And so, or they're all vacation homes.
Yeah.
And for Riverstone, you've got between 400 and 500 individuals, right? And we know those numbers as we sit here today are not reflective of what the growth has been and what we see out there.
Even in 2020, I mean, even giving this extra year,
yes,
in 2020, that wasn't the snapshot of it.
That is correct, right?
How many homes were added in those 10 years in Tesoro Viejo and Riverstone?
None in Tesoro, other than about 3 or 4, right? And so you don't see any there. And within Riverstone, you have about 100. So, right, and what I think we're probably speaking of, and frankly, we may be slightly premature on this effort, but we are certainly, and we're here to take certainly guidance and comments, but I do think that we are going to be tracking the growth throughout our county on an annual basis and quarterly basis. and there may be strong justification for a relook in a mid-census cycle time frame. Right, similar to how we processed and conducted what we did in the 16-17. I think this will be a ripe point of conversation to ensure fair representation from all of those voters out there. And so we are mandated by law to utilize the 2020 census data through this effort. But again, there is provisions and ability to look at this throughout that 10-year census period from 2020 to 2030 and make those corrections. And I think it'll be a prime opportunity as we move forward in the coming years to be tracking that and looking at that and paying attention to those numbers, so that, I mean, it is conceivable that 2030, in that 2030 census, District 1, if the boundaries remain similar to how they are today, right? And again, as Trevor had laid out, we'll have some draft maps available for the board's consideration next week at the hearing, that you could see 10, 12,000, District 1 all of a sudden comes from about even with where you want to be to 12, 13, 14,000 folks over, if not more. Frankly, by that 2030 census. So all the more reason to be tracking and looking at that and maybe planning a mid-cycle redistricting effort there.
Is there any way to question the Census Bureau's count or how they arrived at that number? I mean, it just seems so egregiously off. That there should be some method, like, to say, what did you do? What was the outreach? Was it just just send it out in the mail and that's it? What was the methodology they used to count those people? I mean, and that, not just for the redistricting of the boundaries, but in terms of funding we get from different places, we're now taking on a lot more people than 12 to 16 in Tesoro and 400 in Riverstone. I mean, it's a big deal to the county. I mean, I think we're missing out on, thousands, not like tens and 20s. It's
thousands of
thousands.
members. Absolutely, Supervisor, and we will dive into that and reach out to the census and state. And looks like Ms. Bax has some comments there too.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that during the last census effort, because we did get assistance on that as well, there's two kind of factors we had to work through, and that was both the state of California, who provided a lot of assistance to us to go through that process, and also the Federal Census Bureau. So yes, we can absolutely do what we can in reaching out to those contacts that we have. They did focus a lot on online type submittals for your census data. Personally, I know I just did mine on the phone, so I know there were a lot of communities where they were focused on that when, that may not have been available at the time to some communities. So we can definitely reach out to our contacts that we have and get more information for you.
Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor.
So thank you. So regarding the criteria, is there anything in the law that talks about voting population?
Yeah, so specifically the main characteristic or the main component for a redistricting plan would be the total population, the substantially equal population. Now, we can take a look at the voting age population, and we do have those numbers, those rough numbers here with us, but that is not one of the criteria which a redistricting plan is weighed on its legitimacy. So you can't necessarily use that voting age population to determine what your district boundaries are.
Thank you.
But we certainly, to that point, I mean, we have that data. We will be looking at a whole list of opportunities and looking at that and making sure that, again, primarily looking at the population breakdown, but also all of those other factors that go into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the criteria that was mentioned on previous slide here, those all be taken into consideration as well.
Okay. Are there other questions?
So when you say preserving communities of interest, as an example, District 2 is largely an agricultural community. It is an agricultural community. You would preserve that intent as to disenfranchise those that are agriculturally would be wrong.
Right. For instance, like, similar to racial gerrymandering, I think that's the hot topic with a lot of these plans, separating those communities of interest, but you're absolutely correct. An agricultural community is a community of interest. So if that's definitely one of the components we took into account when considering draft maps as we're going through that process, because we don't want to dilute that voting pool with a lot of inclusion from, for instance, like the city of Madera, adding more residential or more urban
That would be my
population.
concern,
Yeah.
that you disenfranchise that community because the populations are in centers are in urban areas.
Right.
You could easily control them, wipe them out, wipe out their interests completely.
Right.
And there is a disconnect between urban voters and rural voters. There's a complete different mindset in agricultural people versus urban voters. So, yeah,
Right.
It's a
Yeah. If I would, the one thing I would, and the caveat to that, right, is as we're going through this process and we're looking at the district, I mean, we are looking at that population. So where districts, 2 and 5 need increased population, right? So there is that we ultimately are trying to look at and get to that nice even
Within the
level
10%
within
line.
that 10% deviation. Yes.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing. We will open this to the public. Are there any questions, comments from the public? No questions from the public. I have a question, though. Okay, so I look on our next meeting calendar. It says October 19, 2021, regular calendar. Is that an evening meeting?
It is an on-the-road meeting, I believe, at George Washington Elementary School.
Okay,
And-
gotcha.
Right, and it'll meet the criteria for one of the evening and/or weekend meeting requirements from
Okay.
the Elections Code.
Gotcha.
In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we have advertised these meetings in both local publications and on our website. So anybody who has any questions from the public can contact my department, and we'd be happy to go over any questions that they have.
Very good. So people have that opportunity. Yes, Supervisor.
And then just for clarification, people are allowed to submit their maps as well.
Yes,
to our
absolutely. And I apologize. We do have a digital map now online that you can actually go in and make changes to as you see fit. And you can submit those to the county as well. So you can submit either a draft on paper type map, or you can go onto our webpage and utilize that format as well. The information is available in both English and Spanish.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
That's a 6 p.m. Right?
That's correct.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Because typically are on the roads or at 5, but it's at 6 o'clock. So I think it's important for people to know that's the case. So good. Fantastic.
In addition, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. In addition to what Jamie had mentioned, the interactive map has all the data on there that we're currently using. We've uploaded all the census demographic information, the total population by block level. There's also the 2020 data versus the 2010 data on that as well. And so people can make those changes as they see fit, taking all that into account, and provide us with those online submissions. So.
Very good.
And the staff maps, when will those be presented?
I'm sorry?
The staff maps?
Staff maps.
Oh,
staff
staff
maps.
maps. Yes,
Staff
staff maps, 3 draft staff maps will be included as part of next week's item. Correct.
Staff map.
Staff map.
Okay, very good. If there's, looks like we have a public comment.
Christina Baxter again, Madera County Farm Bureau. Once the staff maps are released and there's the opportunity for public comment, is there an additional, because when does this come for approval, I guess, is my first question. And then two, how does that allow, because I know you're going to want public comments on people potentially drawing different lines.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, as part of the process, the next hearing is the third hearing of 4 required hearings. So the schedule for adoption is not until the last meeting in November. And so you'll have the opportunity to be present at the next hearing and or submit your comments to us, but a resolution and a final map will not be before the board until, I apologize, I believe it's the 16th. November 16th hearing will be the final hearing.
Okay, and might I suggest, I think that our local publications do the best that they can, but maybe putting something in a larger circulation would
That
be
wasn't-
helpful.
Yep.
So just,
Absolutely. We actually did advertise in the Fresno Bee as well.
thank you.
That's a larger circulation. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing, and if there's no other comments from my colleagues, we will close this item and move on to item 6D.
Thank you for the presentation.
Very good. This is a discussion and consideration to adopt a side letter agreement.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Susan Carter from Human Resources reporting on this item. So this item is really to memorialize a current practice, and then there is a slight change to that current practice, but we want to memorialize that in our professional unit MOU, which the deputy coroners whose schedule we're talking about, they belong to that bargaining unit. And so our deputy coroners have been working a 410 work schedule since the coroners division was established. But at that, as of up until the end of this month, their lunch hour or meal period was outside of their normal schedule. So they were actually on 11 hours with 10 hours working, 1 hour lunch. And so starting October 1st, though, under this side letter, they are now that hour lunch or meal period is going to be part of their actual workday. And so this allows flexibility for the employees and for the sheriff, because we're never aware of when we might need a coroner's services. And so this way they're not off at lunch when we do need it. They're actually working, and then they can stop when they're not busy to do their lunch. So this item is before you for ratification. If you have any questions.
Second.
If there's no other questions, are there any questions from the public regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you. Moving on to 6E, this is a discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution recognizing and determining meeting risk under the COVID-19 proclaimed state of emergency pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Council.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board, Regina Garza, your county counsel. As a follow-up to the discussion and direction I received at your last board meeting, in front of you is a resolution that incorporates both that are allowed under the law to continue providing for teleconferencing during Brown Act meetings with different criteria than we've seen before. The board is able to make these findings, number one, if we're in a state of emergency, which continues to exist, and also if a state or local official has imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. In your backup packet, there is such a recommendation from Dr. Paul that in speaking with Director Boss on Friday, that may be put online for the benefit of all Brown Act agencies or meetings by commissions and boards that are considering what to do. This is there and available to you and those bodies, and then also was incorporated into the resolution before you today. Happy
Move
to
to
answer any
approve.
questions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments from my colleagues? Otherwise, are there any members of the public that have a comment? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Frazier,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Chairman Poitras.
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have a way to just send it out, that letter out to the boards and commissions that we did on just as help?
Yep, I'll follow up with Director Boss because that was also an idea she had, was providing it by email.
Yeah, just by email, real quick. I think
Sounds
that would
good.
make it easier for like MCTC to, I know we just had this discussion there as well, so.
Yeah, it might have been done on Friday. If not, I will follow up.
Perfect.
Very good. Thank you. And now we have our update on COVID-19 and the current vaccination administration status.
Thank you, Chairman of the Board, members of the Board, Simon Paul, Health Officer. I wanted to give a brief update on where we're at with the current surge. The numbers are starting to decrease. The surge this time was about 60% of the prior surge, which was large in the winter. Our case rate got as high as 48 or 49 cases per 100,000, and today it's down below 30, finally at 29.9. It's taken longer to come down this time, partly because of cases in youth. 5 to 17 was actually our highest risk group, highest number of cases. They also are starting to decline. And also with this surge, many more places are open, obviously, than in the winter. So I think that's also kept cases taking a little while to come down. Hospitalizations, the hospitals remain extremely full, but it's kind of stabilized. They still have support from state-provided staff and the National Guard at hospitals in the Central Valley. The numbers have stabilized and they're sort of managing, so that's good. And as you know, hospitalizations tend to lag somewhat behind the cases 3 to 4 weeks. So our decreasing cases now, you'll see in the hospitals 2-3 weeks now. Monoclonal antibody treatment is available for people at high risk. Madera Community Hospital has done a great job also with state support in making that available. And we've begun using our case investigators when they call anybody with COVID, newly diagnosed case. If they're in a high risk group, they notify them that the monoclonal antibody treatment is available and they should think about it. And I actually think we're probably one of the only counties using our case investigators for that purpose. 2 questions that have come up a lot lately. What are the chances of another surge after this one? And what about new variants? And there is some new data. They do seroprevalence studies, and finally that's data is coming out. In May, they looked at a random sample of people in the Central Valley. What are their odds of having, you can tell, either having been vaccinated or having had prior COVID. And so for the numbers in May, you can kind of add in what we know about new infections and our vaccination rates now. And from that, you could estimate now that about 50% of the population of Madera has immunity from vaccination. Another 25% have some level of immunity from having had prior COVID infection. Leaves about 25% of the population, or 40,000 plus people who are still without immunity and at risk for COVID, which is a significant number of people, but it's nowhere near as many as we've had for the last prior surges. So there are still people at risk. Some of the people may avoid COVID because of their lifestyle. They're managing to stay away from it and would be at lower risk. But there are still significant numbers of people at risk. We're still working on vaccination for people in all of these groups. Vaccinations for children may become available soon, and that will obviously increase the percentage of people who have immunity. The other question, but if there were a surge, since there's only a quarter of the people at risk at this point, you'd expect it to be significantly smaller than our last 2 surges. The other question is interesting about the possibility of a new variant. It's interesting talk by an evolutionary virologist pointed out that when a virus is new to a species, there are sometimes large changes that can occur that greatly change its infectivity. As it becomes more and more adapted, there tend to be smaller and smaller changes. I think the best example I could think of that, it's like if you move to Michigan, the first year your wardrobe changes a ton. Next year you're still freezing, but the number of changes you can make to get warmer are smaller because you've already made the big changes. Same thing, the idea is that the infectivity of the Delta variant so effective that there may be fewer changes the virus can make to become even more effective, able to spread from person to person. The hope is that we've seen significant changes in variants in the first year, but those changes would be smaller in the second year. So again, there's fewer people at risk, maybe smaller changes that could occur that would increase infectivity by smaller amounts. So those are both hopeful looking forward. And again, we're still working on vaccinations. Boosters are also available only for people who have had Pfizer. The next couple of weeks, I think actually today they're looking at Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. So the next couple of weeks we'll know if there's a recommendation for boosters and for who with the other 2 vaccines. And also this month they're looking at younger age groups and their eligibility for vaccination. schools are doing well with keeping kids in class. California is one of the few states that allows people who are exposed to stay in class, but it's a huge testing burden. So they're doing well keeping people in class, but it's been a massive amount of work with contact tracing and testing. They will really benefit if our case rates in the community come down, because most of the cases are being brought into school from the community. There's less COVID out there. They will have far fewer people testing and tracing. So that's also promising. And I think the only other thing to wrap up, just to remind people about flu. COVID is not the only thing out there. There was almost no flu in the last year, which is good for last year, but it means people have less immunity this year. So there are some concerns that it could be a significant year for influenza. Working on getting people vaccinated. It's changing quickly, but adults can sign up through My Turn for influenza clinics. The health department on our website is a great place to check, because we're updating the clinics that we're offering flu vaccines. And for anybody under 18, they can also get, we provide childhood vaccinations at the health department. So that's a place that people can get vaccinated. Those are my major updates, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Are there any questions?
Yeah, on the mandate that came down from the governor regarding children aged 12 to 17, and then I think the next one, so 5 to 12 is not clear to get a shot anyway, so that wouldn't touch them, right?
Well, they're looking at that this month. So what the state said is they're doing it by sort of school blocks, so it's high school and middle school or elementary school. If all ages in high school become eligible, then it would be mandated for high school. Only half of a grade block, then they wouldn't do it. So it's really, high school or elementary school. But I think this month they're looking at 5 and up.
So how, on a regular vaccine, like, polio, measles, for them to get full approval from the FDA, how many years does it usually require in testing for those kinds of age groups?
Yeah, usually the biggest obstacle and the time limit is enrolling people in the study. So if you look, sometimes it may take years to finish the studies because they're enrolling very few people. With COVID, they were able, I think the first studies with Pfizer was about 40,000 people enrolled in 6 months. So they've been able to enroll people much more quickly. The timeline of the previous vaccines, I don't know, but that's usually the limiting factor for approval of drugs and approval of vaccines. Getting the studies completed. So they wait till they have enough data to justify it. The FDA process usually takes longer. Generally, they're not taking shortcuts. They're just doing more man hours to get the data review done.
And to show long-term effects, what would usually be a long-term effect in terms of a study group?
I don't actually know how long most vaccine studies. The issue is if it takes 3 or 4 years to do the study, you're going to have more data on people who study for 3 or 4 years. With vaccines, the side effects that you worry about obviously are going to be caused by autoimmunity. The vaccine itself is a trivial amount of like nothing. So it's your immune response that can lead to like Guillain-Barré and other complications, or low platelets and things like that, bleeding disorders. And with vaccines, those have always been seen to occur when the immunity is strongest. So that happens in the first month or two after your like sort of final injection, when your antibodies or whatever the vaccine is by its level. So vaccine studies they haven't seen long-term side effects from vaccination studies. All the side effects you see from vaccines in the first month or two.
Okay. Even with the mRNA, because this is new vaccine technology, correct? And so it's generally that first couple months that it'll still have any impact?
That's when your antibody, that's what we're seeing. The reason they're talking about boosters is because antibodies are going down. So the vaccine causes antibodies, and those antibodies are going to cause a problem, like, the myocarditis in kids. That's caused because you're starting to attack stuff. That's going to happen when the antibodies are peaking after the stimulation of antibodies after the last shot.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments?
I was going to ask about the event of myocarditis. There's at least 4 nations now that have banned Moderna, stopped the use of it completely, especially among adolescents, and because of the myocarditis events. What is the data in the United States on that, or do we have any? And
The numbers I've seen is like 40 cases per million, I think it is, which is not a lot, but it's not trivial. And I know Iceland stopped using Moderna, but partly because they had enough Pfizer, they didn't need it. So I even bothered with the discussion. I think England stopped using it for people who are younger.
Right.
So
That's what I read too. They had enough of the Pfizer to be able to
Not
say,
have to
okay,
worry about it.
let's transition to Pfizer because it's a little bit
and
less complication.
Right now it's approved for 16. Oh, no, it's not. So Moderna right now is only for 18 and above. Sorry, I'm getting my vaccines mixed up. It's only approved for people who are over 18, and that's what the FDA has to consider in the next month. And I think right now Moderna hasn't even applied for younger than 18. It's only
Right.
Pfizer.
Right.
So the issue would be not Moderna for younger kids, but Moderna for the 18-year-old group. And like I said, the numbers I've seen is 40 out of a million, which hasn't been enough cases to make them change the recommendation, because most of the cases are mild to moderate and recover. So haven't changed it, but that's something they can follow.
Very good. If there's no other questions or comments, are there any comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks
Good
for
to
your
have you
time.
back.
Moving on to item 6G, this is discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution determining that special tax shall cease to be levied and approving authorized related documents and actions. This is an unusual event to see a tax ceasing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Trieber, Chief of Development Services. I have Andrea Saldati, our Deputy Director of Public Works, as well with me. And you stole my thunder there. Yes, this is a little bit unusual to see an item where we are ceasing a tax out here. And there's an item on the agenda that follows shortly thereafter. This is a request that was made by the master developer within Tesoro Viejo. We have received signed requests from all property owners, and what we are doing is ceasing and eliminating what's known as Improvement M from that previously done CFD. And then a subsequent item on the board's agenda will be forming anew there. So this is unwinding that that was considered back in 17 again at the request of the developer. And the one thing I want to make sure is clear to the board and the public that may be here in the audience or listening, this is at no cost to any resident of the county. This is all developer funded. There's a deposit agreement that was entered into last month by the board to fully fund all requirements of forming this CFD.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions of Matt? Any questions from the public regarding this item? I'll accept the motion for action.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
This will be very important to help the 12 to 16 people that are out there.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
without a doubt.
That's the bulk.
So we'll go to item 6H. This will be the CFD formation 2021, Tesoro Viejo 2, number 1 and 2.
Yes, so again, kind of subsequent to that item that the board just passed, this is a resolution of intent to form that new CFD over the previously improvement area M there. So in setting the public hearings for November 16th at 5:30, that meeting is also on the road. So available for any questions the board may have.
Are there any questions of Matt? Not, or anybody from the public? Are there any comments, questions? Seeing and hearing none, I'll accept the motion for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
Thank you so much. Number 9, pending legislation. I don't believe that we have any at this time to discuss. And we now have something that we've all been waiting for and couldn't wait for it. This is the workshop regarding CalPERS open enrollment for the 2022 health benefits and elections available on County NeoGov program. And the reason we're having it today is the deadline is tomorrow, so it would be good to know how to make changes and to enroll before tomorrow.
Good morning or good afternoon, members of the board. Elba Gomez with Human Resources. So I'm going to have Michelle May and Brittany Needham come up here. Brittany's actually going to just show you really fast how the system works. And if you have any questions about open enrollment, Michelle will also be here to answer any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get the system started. I'm going to have Brittany actually do it, so I won't mess it up. There you go.
Good afternoon, Brittany Needham. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our open enrollment webpage and then go directly into NeoGov. You do have to log into the site, but you can access NeoGov from anywhere, neogov.com. I did check before I came down here to make sure that you guys all have accounts that are active today, but I also initiated some password resets in case you guys need some help logging in.
That password reset, that's not for our entire access to the entire county.
Nope, it's strictly for NeoGov.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and go to our Human Resources page on the website, and I'm going to go straight to our benefits and our open enrollment. Just because we do have a NeoGov login on here, again, you can just reach it by going to neogov.com. And the username for all of our county employees is always their email address. And just bear with me while I type all this in. Okay, so this is what we call NeoGov eForms. You can tell by the little green square up here in the left-hand corner. This is the module that we're using for open enrollment this year, but there will be a different module that's part of the implementation that will go live for next year's open enrollment. But there should be, when you log in, you'll go to the self-service portal, and up here on the towards the top right, there's a button called Open Enrollment, which I'm going to go ahead and click on. And then we have an overview of all of the options that we've laid out at the beginning of the process. But after reading through that, all you have to do is click Start Process in the top right here, and then confirm that you do want to start the open enrollment process. And then it should refresh the page. And now the first thing that you have to do is click this Answer Question option. And we have several different things depending on what you need to do during the open enrollment process. I am going to select the top 3 today just because I'm going to act like we're adding dependents, because you have to fill out several different forms to do that process. So I'm going to go ahead and click the top 3 to change my medical plan, my dental plan, and then to add the dependent information, and hit Save in the top right. Okay, now you'll see that we have several different tasks that have been assigned. I'm going to go ahead and just open up the CalPERS form to show you an example of what the forms look like in NeoGov. It does populate some of the information based off your employment assignment in the system, and then you would just need to fill out, like if I wanted to add or delete dependents, I would check that, add the information down under section 15 here, and then the forms can be signed electronically. Up towards the top right, you'll see that you can save for later if you need to get additional information and come back into the system. And then once I filled out all the required fields, the Submit button would be not grayed out the way it is now, and I'd be able to hit Submit and move on to the next form. I'm going to go ahead and click the self-service portal on the top left, which takes me back to the dashboard. And you'll see that I have this open enrollment one here that I assigned this morning. So if I click back on that again, it takes me directly back to the process. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. Here we go. Are there any questions for this part that I need to go back over?
It's been very good. Thank you.
What time tomorrow? Is it midnight? Is it 5 p.m.? What time are they due?
It's actually Friday at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Friday. Well,
On the
all right,
15th.
excellent, yeah.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
So I just wanted to mention that the system here, to log out, this is what is going to be moving, starting next year, we'll be using this system for payroll and our benefits and everything else. So this system you will only have access to it. We can't give access to anybody else because it is your employee record. So if somebody asks us to get access, we're not going to be able to do that. All of your personal information will be in that system, and only you will have access to your individual records. Okay? Just want to let you know. Next year, or before the next year, when we start actually implementing the system, we'll probably give you another training so you can see how you're going to see your W-2s and your tax information and all that stuff moving forward.
Elba, if the supervisors do not wish to make any changes, they do not have to fill out the forms. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
Very good. Yes.
Good morning, Michelle May, Human Resources. Just to clarify on that, CAO Varney, just wanted to make sure anyone who opts out of the health insurance, you do have to do an opt-out form each year. And that is included on the open enrollment packet. So if you need help, just let us know, but it is part of the process. And if you have any questions on any of the benefits, of course, we're happy to help you with those as well. Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Just if I may quickly, just wanted to share with everyone here that, as you may recall, we rolled out the flexible spending account programs earlier this year, in addition to some voluntary benefit options offered through AFLAC services. And we are going to be doing a full open enrollment for the 2022 plan year, so for a full calendar year, January through December. We're going to do that in the month of November for the full month. So you'll see some additional information come out this week. And then, of course, again, as we get closer to doing that, so that will have its own open enrollment. It will be targeted, so employees will have an opportunity to have a lot more information, and it's not commingled with this open enrollment period for the CalPERS and our dental and vision.
Thank you.
programs.
That was my question, was if, so through NeoGov, we'll do that. Will it also, like, if anyone wants to set up deferred comp, anything like that, that'll be through here as well, or?
So good question. The AFLAC and the flexible spending account programs will actually be through that vendor's portal. It's an online portal. So we'll send the email with the link. It's pretty straightforward. You just log in, walk through the different options available, and you can select or not select. You don't have to do anything if you don't choose to. As far as the deferred compensation, I don't believe we're set up at this point with e-forms through that. So the process is still the same. The good thing about the deferred comp program, you can enroll or make changes any time of the year. You do not have to do it during open enrollment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. If there's no other questions, anybody from the public has any questions? Probably not. We will, thank you so much. Great presentation. Let's move on to supervisor and staff reports. I'll start to my right, Supervisor Frazier.
Great beam raising last week. I've done ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and every other day. I've never done a beam raising. It was fun. Barely got there just in time.
Yeah, it's good to see the Justice Building going up, and just evidence of our support for law enforcement and the public safety of Madera County continues.
Very good. Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you. I attended the Latinas Unidas Masquerade celebration this past weekend, and because of COVID, they haven't been able to do a lot of the fundraisers that they normally do, including the Fiesta in the Park to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And as we're coming to an end next week, we'll have a special presentation at our On the Road board meeting from some of those members and some students that they work with. So I think it'll be a great treat for us. And then also just wanted to mention that with Carla's help, we've been working in the Parksdale community, and we'll be setting up some office hours over there in a space and location that they've provided us free of charge. So it'd be great to be able to connect directly with the folks out there. So thanks to Carla for working on that effort. And today's National Farmers Day, by the way. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you. And I wonder if our county historian can look up to see if there's ever been a board supervisor meeting in District 4.
Okay, we'll look that up.
This will be the first on the road meeting, but I wonder if there's ever been one. So
Not in district.
it depends on where the district lines maybe were back in, in yesteryear.
I can't recall one since I've been on the board in nearly 12 years. So.
All right, well, we're excited.
So
We'll have some Fastway chicken.
that's going to be
Board.
wonderful. That's,
Excellent.
there's a lot of reasons to have it in District 4, but that's one of the main ones. Exactly.
Oh, I also, sorry, because we won't have another meeting before then, but, oh yeah, we will be on the road, never mind. The 23rd American Heart Walk out in Tesoro Viejo, so I know we got a lot of teams from the county, and it's great event, but it'll be on the 23rd starting at 8.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Varney.
Oh, I just wanted to say that we usually think of fires as being a mountain event, and of course we had a fairly substantial grass fire to go with yesterday's fairly substantial winds in the Avenue 17 area required some houses being evacuated and some roads being blocked, but all in all, in the end, things worked out fine.
Very good. Thank you, Jay. Council.
No report, Chairman.
Clerk of the board.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, and appreciate everybody's hard work, and we will close the meeting.